Welcome to 10x Live, the show where we're revolutionizing business one strategy at a time. At 10x Solutions, we have a bold vision to democratize business excellence. We believe every organization deserves the tools to thrive. Our secret sauce? The perfect blend of cutting-edge AI, the proven power of organizational health, and growth management. We assemble genius teams equipped with advanced analytics to supercharge decision-making and skyrocket efficiency. From AI-augmented strategy sessions that spark creativity to precise planning powered by human ingenuity, we're your catalyst for sustainable growth. We keep it real, we keep it honest, and we keep you ahead of the curve. Join us for the 10x revolution. We're not just adapting to change, we're leading it. Let's map out a future where your business doesn't just survive, it thrives. This is 10x Live. Let's transform business together.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to 10x Live. We are in week 3. Excited to be here. You're going to see me stiff as a statue over here because I don't know what I did on my ergonomic pillow, but I did not sleep correctly on it. But we got Jay.
You slept on ergonomically.
Barely.
We figured it out.
I don't know what happened, but it is. I am sore, but I'm glad to power through it. And we have such great stuff to talk about. As always, each week. Like, we have so many weeks planned out, Jay, especially with your mastermind as a creative dreamer. I mean, just endless thoughts that you have around AI and 6 types of working genius. And that's what we're going to bring. Just coming back to those topics each week, but diving a little bit deeper into it, something a little bit unique, a new demonstration each time we're going through one of those. Then we have a new topic that we're going to bring up. But before we dive into those, I guess, how's your week going? And what do you have to introduce before we go into our 4th of July weekend here, Jay?
Yeah, just kind of plugging along. Excited to be here. This is kind of been the major focus for me, working on getting a couple products ready for launch. That have a couple people who have been really kind of galvanizing me to do that. I am a wonder and invention, so my strengths all live in the ideation phase. My frustrations are spread out between the activation or the activation and implementation phase, but so it's good to have somebody to drive me to action, and so that's what's been happening. And it's good. So I'm very close to our product launch here in the next week or two, which is really just going to be to kind of give a brief explanation of it. Through the use of artificial intelligence and organizational health best practices and really kind of organizational alignment, which is the idea of getting everybody in an organization aligned with the kind of core purposes, vision, as well as shorter term things like current initiatives, direction, measuring success, those sorts of things. So creating that alignment with artificial intelligence to help kind of make it a superpower and to automate a lot of that, along with growth strategy. To really kind of create a plan, a 5 to 7 page plan for leaders and businesses to start immediately implementing these things. And the cool thing about it is, because I'm going to be automating so much of this with AI, I kind of did some cost evaluation, and I think that the value of the product that's going to come out is probably going to be between $500 and $1,000 as far as the level of report that you get, as far as the actionable items that come out of it and what it will produce for your company. But this is 10x Solutions, and everything needs to provide at least 10x the value. So we are going to be offering it for $50. So for $50, people will be able to get a report that can possibly, actually pretty guaranteed to increase bottom line numbers pretty quickly with the superpowers of AI, organizational alignment, and growth strategy. So very close to launching that, probably here in the next weeks to a month, no longer than that. So yeah,
man. And as a people leader, I think of that type of tool with that level of pay. That's what I needed. You talk about you're at the beginning, I'm at the end of the downline in the working genius productivity model. and I just want to go, and sitting back and having the strategic thought, I can get through it. I can muscle through it, but it takes a lot out of me. You start talking about it and gets you all fired up, excited, giddy. You know, I've been watching Tim Hawkins a lot on YouTube, and he talks about his mom saying gallivanting around a lot and makes fun and pokes fun. That's what I visualize with you being able to walk, man. You're just gallivanting, going around, getting this precise strategic plan in place for those, utilizing the tools that we're trying to harness and get in front of others to adopt this idea that AI is a tool that's going to stay, something that's available to all of us, and we got to start using it.
Yeah.
And so with your creative abilities and exercising a tool that's bringing in a lot of analysis for you to be able to break down, I love that. I'm excited. You've been working hard, my friend. You have had a lot of fun with AI. I mean, last week we broke the news that you had created. What did you create last week, Jay?
It was an album, 15 songs.
That's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
That
We're gonna talk about that a bit today. Yeah.
and so we have that on there, and yeah, you have something else that you've been working on too that I'm sure that we'll talk about.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the last couple of weeks, we're not going to do like a real kind of product demonstration today. Any kind of not even like really products. So I'm not selling them. The GPTs that we've shown off before. And Kyle made a great point too. So if you're watching a lot of this, so many of the tools are cheap and incredibly easy to get to and start using. And so, we're going to have a lot of conversation. Almost all the conversations we have and we'll just say this, every conversation will have a component of AI, organizational health or organizational alignment, and really kind of competitive growth strategy, which we're really just going to call growth management. So it's gonna have those are always going to be the theme. So at least one, if not all three, will be kind of the subject of everything we talk about. The six working geniuses is a part of organizational health and organizational alignment, and so a large portion of the focus on that for this show will be there as well. And then as we go, we talked about product demonstrations. So with the GPT demonstrations we did last week, we put the links in there. We'll put them again in there this week. They really just put the link. That's all you need. I think at this point they're free. So you go in, you might have to sign up an account for ChatGPT to get in and use them, but you can go ahead and start using those immediately. It's cool. The Genius Jobs one, the one that analyzes job descriptions and does all of that. I was looking at it today, and it had over 50 chats now. Which is pretty cool. So the other one was like 10, I think. There was like between 10 and the next milestone. So we only had 2 or 3 people watch live. Didn't have a lot of interaction. We've shared it with a few people. We've already gotten 50 people to get in there and start utilizing this tool to improve and to serve themselves and their customers. I had a client start using it with their client, and their client was blown away. Absolutely blown away at it. So that is the Genius Jobs GPT that we looked at last week. Very easy to use, very easy to get into.
So if we take a step back real quick, Jay, on that, and so you talk Chat GPT a lot, and we have this opportunity. You said you kind of build it out. It's available to everybody. So if I signed up for Chat GPT today, what am I looking in? How am I going in and exercising this resource that's available? Is this just like another type of website? Like, I'll just really undress this a little bit to make sure that everybody in our audience here knows how simple it is to go in and maximize this incredibly valuable tool that we're talking about.
Yeah. So to avoid getting really technical on what AI is, it's over time, we'll say scientists, developers, have created algorithms to get computers to start teaching themselves, to learn for themselves. So that you give it data and it learns and adapts. You give it data, it learns and adapts, and you kind of keep going through that process. And so what we have, they're called large language models, is another way to do it. And really, what that means is these AI have been trained on data sets in the billions or trillions like of really of all the world's information. So a lot of ways you think of ChatGPT as a machine learning program that has gone through all of the internet and stored that information for itself and learned from it. Not necessarily stored it, but learned from it. So when you go in, what you are doing is you are interacting with a tool that has learned how to imitate the human language in such a way that you can conversate with it, and it can you kind of just you get it to perform tasks. You can do research. You can you kind of create sparks of creativity. It can write policies. It can translate. One of the first use cases for it was I had an old boss who I'm pretty sure what he did was whenever he'd send an email, I think that he would hit record on his phone and just talk
Mm.
for like 5 minutes
Yeah.
and then hit send.
Yeah.
Right. So what we would receive was like there were times where we would like sit down and try and like highlight pieces of it to try and figure out what he wanted and like what exactly was he was asking for, because it was hard. We just had a hard time understanding what
Yeah.
exactly he was asking for. Right. Copy and paste that thing into Chat GPT and say, um, explain what this email is asking for and give me a bullet point list of how to accomplish it in order. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, this is what they're looking for. Here's the steps. And now we take that, and this is what we did. This is one of the first use cases I found for it. Is I took that, and then I called a meeting with everybody because this person was the owner of the company, and so what he wanted to do was very important. And so it was like, okay, all of a sudden, everybody who had the email, I called them into my office and we sat down with this thing and it was like, here's really and all of a sudden within 10 minutes, action plan in place. People were doing the things. It was like, we had delegated it out, parsed it out, action plan in place. Within 2 hours, I think we met again and we were basically done.
Man.
We spent 5 minutes just confused until we, were able to do this. So
Yeah.
there's probably a million use cases. Because we're not going to do a demonstration today, I was tempted to pull it up and go into that and just show. So I would encourage anybody who's watching, if you're interested and you're curious and your AI is something new to you and using things like ChatGPT is new to you, check out last week's video. Actually, the first week, I think it was the first week we did the Genius Jobs GPT. So you can kind of go in there and see how it works.
Yeah. I love that. And you've just contributed to the AI world, right? You went in and you kind of build behind the scenes this 6 types of working genius tool to help you find a job. And now on this platform that those like myself have gone and signed up on, it's now available to the public. Like people can go in and utilize this tool that you designed, and so it's a contribution. Like we talk about the history and the simplicity of it, but every time somebody goes in and uses their skill set, works and learns this tool, we're now contributing, helping other small businesses in a variety of ways. So it continues to be an awesome tool. And I think that's a good transition for our question. I put in the chat out there as well, but so how do we think AI will impact our world, the working world, in the next 3 years? And so that's something that we would love for people to engage in, to talk about, to prompt it for those that are watching here. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it. It's something that we're going to continue to address probably a few times over because it's a really important question. Because it's here, it's now, we're using it, it's being used. It's a matter of, are you going to jump on the train or not? You should, especially if you're a small business owner. We're going to talk about that and emphasize it every week. But, I think I'll hand that off to you if you want to talk a little bit about it, what it will change here, and we'll just keep plugging along at that question as we go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, like as you were talking, I was really kind of, interested in hearing your story with AI. I think you kind of were introduced to it or started getting into it fairly recently.
Yeah.
And I know that you were pretty hesitant, or just unsure, maybe a little skeptic. I don't know if it was skepticism or just being unsure or fear or what, but it was something you didn't want to do, and now you've kind of jumped into it. And I'd love to hear about Kind of what made you, what you were worried about, kind of what changed your
Yeah.
mind, and what your experience has been.
Well, when I think of AI, I think of somebody that's designing rocket ships. I think of these super incredible, intelligent people I'm not going to be able to keep up with. And those that designed it, I think that's still true today. But I didn't realize the tools were in front of me for somebody to use regularly. And so they're, like a lot of people, I Robot, I've watched a lot of those movies and I'm like, oh man, this might be the devil, right? This might be the death of the world. I've had
Yeah.
those thoughts. I was hesitant.
Today, I do. We
Yeah.
still, yeah. It's,
uh, Am I going to be a contributor to the end of the world by using something like this? Um, I have since come way down and landed the airplane on that to where this is an incredible tool. And the most recent example was just a really big emotional response that I had where it was with my son and a teacher. And so, most simplistic type of AI example would be with that. So, we were hearing things from my son, who's 9 years old, third grade, that we knew probably not everything was true, but we had to address it somehow. And it was with a new teacher. There'd been a really incredibly difficult situation where the old teacher on a Friday night just resigned, decided to be done. So we're three-quarters of the way through the school year, scrambling, teacher shortage throughout the nation, finding somebody that's qualified is difficult. And luck would have it, they did find somebody very qualified. But the stories were just not adding up to what the credentials were showing on LinkedIn with this individual. And so we'd been recording, writing down a piece of paper, all of these thoughts that my son had been bringing. And so we signed up Chat GPT. I said, my buddy Jake continues to talk about how cool of a tool this is. This individual considers himself a scholar. There's no way I'm going to be able to write an email to where this person isn't going to just make me crumble under the pressure of the English language to where I can't get it across without and lose the debate here. And that's not really the intention. So through your prompting, through your coaching, we said, all right, we need this to be empathetic. We want this email to be curious. It also needs to be professional and written at a scholarly level when we did this. And we want it to be concise and bulleted. And so we put it in, we put the scenarios in there, and we said we were going to send it in an email. So we're having this conversation. We go through, we put those prompts in, we say, hello, we're writing an email, teacher. We can even reference the LinkedIn individual if we want to, check them out. This is what they are, check out their background. And so you get to know them a little bit on how we want to address it. And at the end of it, the principal actually reached out to us and, he addressed our concerns as well. But he also said, thank you. That was one of the most professional emails that we've received from parents in a very unaggressive way on a highly emotional situation that's around your kids, right? Like, so you think as a principal, you get these really heated conversations probably every day from parents because it's your child, one adult trying to mentor all these kids and circle the wagons with all these different needs. So it created a really great situation to where when we sat down with that teacher, the conversation, both our guards were down. It just stripped it down to where we could build a relationship to where before we would came and said, you've been mean to our son and mistreating him and we don't like it and we need to talk about it. And if it doesn't go right, we're going to circle the wagons and come with the pitchforks, right? Because it's
Right.
just a parent response.
Which is going to get their response, their
Yeah,
walls
so their
up. They're going
guard's
to
up
be,
and they're going to say, what? So you don't think I'm a good teacher, which would never been the point, right? There's just some things that were said that didn't quite fit with my son, who's a wonder tenacity, who's up in the air, up in the clouds, and then suddenly lands the airplane all the time. And
brilliantly balanced.
yeah, and so it just made a very unique situation. But at the end of the day, man, I wish that teacher was still there. She wound up being great. She was the ideal situation. We formed a really great relationship, but it was just a really difficult situation that didn't pan out for her. But at that point, I was sold on the benefit of Chat GPT writing an email at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday when I'm tired, checked out, and could not have written it well at that point.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about that story is if we aren't using AI to help others, then what's the point,
Yeah.
right? Um, there was a human improvement. Like there was a human situation that was improved. I'm stumbling on the best way to say that, but we use this tool, this artificial, no emotionless artificial tool, and used it in such a way that it helped build bridges, improve relationships, improve situations for yourselves, for your son,
Yeah.
for the principal, for the teacher, for everybody. Right? And that's like that really is one of the most incredible things about it. Not incredible, maybe that's not the best word, but it's one of the most useful things about it is the fact that it is emotionless. And so
Yeah.
it has the ability to address things in a very pragmatic, kind of straightforward way, while you can also say, like, be empathetic, be concise, get our point across, right? Like, my guess is that it didn't like start being apologetic for yourself or making excuses or making it easy. My guess is that you were able to get your point across very effectively.
Yeah. We absolutely were. And it took the emotion out of it. So one of the things I learned as a leader early on was the 24-hour rule, right? You get an email that you don't like and sit on it for 24 hours so you don't have that.
Right.
We don't have 24 hours to sit on things. So when you have a filter like AI that can go in and discern a moment for you and take the emotional response to where it's not taking sides. I can't go to my spouse or one of my coworkers and say, "Can you believe this guy in
Right.
the email he just wrote to me?" I'm taking it out. I'm taking that emotional response out because they don't care who wins. They're just programmed to bring in as much information as possible and trying to. Uh, it's a robot, right? They don't care. They don't care what it is. They're just trying to get an appropriate response and based on the parameters in which you've typed in that you provoked it with. And so
Yeah,
it's
and
amazing.
really what it's doing is it's actually predicting text, right? So I don't know all of the exact science behind it, but when you prompt it, it's using its system, and they have huge compute warehouses where these things are actually working behind the scenes, right? And it's going through all of its training data and going through all of its processes. But what it's doing is it's actually predicting the next word. So it predicts the first word, and then it predicts the next word and the next word, and it predicts when we watch it. I think they do this to like kind of humanize it for us, for the experience. We watch it like scroll across, like it looks like it's writing. It's actually done all of it at once.
Yeah.
I think it's predicted all of the words at once, but that's all it actually did was it started with the first word, it predicted the first word, and then every word thereafter until it like got all the way through. But it's incredibly good at predicting, right? So it doesn't think like we think. It's similar, like because they used um like neurological like they kind of took the brain and the way it processes and kind of replicated that, and so it's able to like attach in a lot of different ways as opposed to like a very linear way of thinking, kind of a binary way of thinking. And then so it takes everything, your instructions, the responses, its training data, and then it predicts a response. And
So
you wouldn't know that when you look at it because it looks like an email.
yeah. No, we wouldn't. And I just think at the elementary level of this, and this is by all means from what you've educated me on, we're still very much not even at the crawling space of AI yet. But I think of chatbots in customer service, right? When we've tried to go in for a credit card or my insurance or something like that, and they try to do everything but get you to a customer service representative. That's what that is, right? It's a prediction model. You type in a couple and it's predicting uh, in a very low level way. It's
Mm-hmm.
predicting what it is. And then on the internet searches, also that. I had a friend that teased me once that worked at Google and they said, "Yeah, we have just hundreds of people that are actually trying to guess what you're going to type in, and we're just trying to type it faster than you." And at that point, I believed it, but that's not what it is at all, right? It's this large language model that's predicting ahead of time
they
for
have
what we're trying to
they have
accomplish
predictive
and look
monkeys in
for.
in the back room.
I know I did. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Somebody's
What?
just waiting. How'd you know
Waiting for the search bar. Oh, that's good.
Kyle's at it again. Yeah, just
Oh,
just funny, but uh,
yeah.
all of that led to, at least from what I understand, all of that led to this moment, to where we are. Like, though it was teased, it was data was pulled on it. Do people like this experience? And more, the younger generations rather not talk to a customer service rep at this time if they can
Yeah.
accomplish it more quickly.
Well, and the more effective they become, the more effective the
Yeah.
chatbots become. You know, and they're not quite there yet. I'll say. I mean, I may never use hotels.com again. Um, because when I had a gotten a hotel and then canceled it, and when I went to cancel it, I they had me cancel through an AI chatbot.
Hmm.
And at first, I was like, "This is incredible," because as soon as I got into that screen, it knew I wanted to cancel it, and it kind of did a little bit of research and said, "Okay, if you cancel right now, then you qualify for the full refund, and do you want to go ahead and cancel?" And I said, "Yes, cancel." And it said, "Okay, you've canceled in time. You're going to get the full refund. We're going to do all this stuff." And I was like, "Okay, sweet. This is awesome." Well, it never finished the job.
Oh
So
no.
it never actually canceled it. It never communicated the thing. It never sent me an email. And like, it didn't even store the data on their end of when the conversation happened, because I had till 3
Boy.
p.m. and I did it at like 10 a.m. that day. Like, I'm like 5 hours ahead. And then when I start getting in touch with their customer service, they're looking at these records and they're basically like accusing me of lying, because I'm saying, like, I canceled in time. I have the records showing I canceled in time. Like, I took screenshots. Actually, I didn't take screenshots. I was able to go back and open the chat and see the history
Hmm.
and then take screenshots. It's like, what are you guys seeing? Like, I canceled on time. And they're like, "Yeah, unfortunately, you did not cancel in time. And so we are not going to be able to issue a refund." And it's like, "Well, no, but I did cancel in time." They're like, "Yes, but you did not cancel in time. So we are not going to be able to." It's like, "No, no, no, but I did."
God.
Back and forth to the point where it's like, oh my gosh. And it was because the AI screwed up, because whoever prompted it and built the stuff in it failed. It just, at least in like that one little area, it didn't finish the job. And anyway, all that to say, that was kind of one thing of it being a bad example, but they are getting so much better that a lot of people, yeah, to your point, are preferring to talk to an AI chatbot to deal with a lot of customer service stuff. It's actually a great use case for a lot of service related industries, um, to like, instead of having a call center. So instead of having somebody call you and place an order,
Yeah.
they can hop on and talk to the chat. They can send you plans and the data and the information that they need, or whatever it is. Like, they can send you all of that automatically, and then the AI deals with them, handles it, coordinates everything. Ties it into the back end with your system, so that you do the scheduling and the requirements and everything, and then can kind of track the progress through to completion. That's pretty powerful.
It's an amazing tool. Continues to be. That's a wild story on that side of it. I just canceled
It
my
was a funny
cable
aside,
services.
yeah, but
Yeah,
it was like an anti point, but
yeah. But I would say I have the most recent. I don't know how long ago that experience was for you, but last week I finally cut the cord on Comcast, and I did it all through chat.
Mhm.
As I had been dreading, I would have cut that months earlier if I would have known. And so maybe that's not a case study for business and profitability, but for customer service to
It
go
is. I mean,
through and go
ease of
through it and
customer service.
just,
Yeah,
yeah, to be
yeah,
able to just finally cancel it without somebody trying to negotiate and upgrade me and go through all those prompts for trying to keep me.
yeah,
It was a beautiful thing,
yeah.
which actually created a better user experience for me that I would rather come back to if I'm going to come back to that
Mhm.
again. Now I
Yeah,
don't know if I will, because streaming is king now. We'll see how it evolves, but just
right.
one of those things that changes and revolutionizes how we watch TV.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be interesting.
It will be. It will be. So as somebody that's looked at this, I guess, Jay, over you're living in this, I am adopting it, adopting AI. What's some of the news, or what are some of the things that you're reading or looking at that might be changing outside of some of our experiences.
It sounds like you're referring to something specific. Um, so, well, there's a couple things that were kind of interesting to talk about as far as new developments in AI or just possibilities. Um, so one, there's let me go back here. Okay, so we talked last week, and I'll talk about it a bit more. Actually, I'll do the first one. Let's do this in a different order because one's a good segue, one's just interesting. Um, it's a horrible movie. It's hard to recommend. It's one of the best movies ever made, maybe, but like horrible to watch. Have you ever seen A Clockwork Orange?
I've not.
Okay, it's probably for the best. But you take like kind of the idea of it. It's Stanley Kubrick, and it's very dark, very dark. Um, but kind of one of the things that happens in that movie is the main character, who is a horrible individual, eventually gets caught and is sentenced to like prison or whatever, and then he goes through like some rehabilitation program that alters his mind and his memory. And kind of what it does is it forces all these negative connotations and experiences and kind of thought processes towards like his negative actions, so that he kind of like suffers whenever he wants to do something negative. And like I think we're getting closer to that world. It's kind of interesting. So this is let me pop this up here and we share screen here. So they are where did it go? It's not sharing. Try again. Share screen, share that one, share. Still nothing?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's down here. I got it. Boom. All right.
There it is.
So somebody is developing an AI-based prison concept. And so if you look at the article, if you read through the article, and we're not going to spend all the time with it, but basically what it's doing is it's saying that like over the course of a couple minutes, it can like force you to, oh my gosh, I have all my windows open. It can force the perpetrator or whatever to like relive the experiences that they caused and feel the experiences from the from the perspective of the victim. And like in a very similar way to how we dream and we kind of lose touch with time, that it can like basically almost like the Matrix, like put so much negative experience into you and rehabilitation training and imagery and thought processes and directly connecting neurologically, that basically it's rehabilitate somebody in a matter of minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is
Terrifying.
wild.
Yeah. I think that's horrible. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I just think of right away, the thought that pops in is our good friend Chris Hennessy has talked a lot about, he's out with a mission to help those that have had drug overdoses, fentanyl specifically. Mm-hmm. So I think of those that are trafficking that currently, to put them through an experience like this, I can't imagine. Like if they start populating some numbers of what's that making them live, that death over and over again. That's wild. That
is interesting.
more terrifying to me than prison at this point.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting. That is interesting. Like, the idea of justice there, at some point though, when does it become cruel and unusual? Like, I mean, we're like literally like tampering with people's like literal minds.
Yeah. It, drunk driving.
Right.
Exactly. Putting somebody else in another car that you just accidentally, that you made a bad choice. Yeah. That is, that's, yeah. I'm kind of stuck on, I don't get stuck in wonder very often, but now I'm wondering a lot of different scenarios on which that could be executed. That makes it a little terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things where like, it's I don't know. Okay, so I guess here's my take on it before we move on. I think that there's probably a like 5% really positive use case for this, and I think that there's probably a 95% holy crap, this is terrifying.
Yeah, yeah, uh, yeah.
Crazy.
For for our those, with it being 4th of July, and I think of those that are out protecting our freedom right now and working on this holiday. This also in the wrong hands could be a really
Exactly.
terrifying tool
Right.
to
Right.
when you get POWs. Yeah,
Hmm.
which is worse. Wow.
Yeah. So that's happening in our world.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
So there's that.
I thought it was interesting. Yeah. Now this one though, this one was interesting. They're going to try and get me to sign up. Um, so last week we talked about just real brief at the end of the conversation, and then we released it. And there's been some people interacting with it, but we put an album out there called the Genius Ensemble. And so the idea of it is that for each of the possible genius pairings from the six working geniuses, that there's kind of a song to educate, inspire them for that. It was really cool. It was really cool. It took me a day to make 15 songs. To put it into, it took me longer than that to like wait for YouTube to allow me to upload more. um, to do it, and some of them are really cool.
They are.
Yeah, I think the whole thing as a whole, like the lyrics are great. Like you can listen to, like you mentioned your son who's a WT, and I mentioned brilliant. I think I even said like brilliant balance, right? I think that's the name of the song for him,
Mm.
for WT is brilliant balance, or brilliantly balanced or something like that. And it's this idea because WT are on both ends of the spectrum that you're kind of living in on in that side. And so and it gets really in depth into the kind of the psyche, the mindset of WT for that song. And so yours is GE. What was it? Radiant Soul, I think was the
Yeah.
name for
Yeah.
yours.
And
Um,
it was spot on. We go back to gallivanting again. Like that's what it sounds like as the
yeah.
the enthusiastic encourager. It
Mhm.
definitely was uplifting and pretty fluffy. But honestly, that's how I've felt at times. But in this world where we're trying to figure out and being a man on that side of it, may sound a little bit like Pollyanna, but in a lot of ways, that one of the things that people would seek out to be on my team is that I encouraged them to keep going when they felt like they couldn't, right? And that's exactly what it was. That's what this song
Mhm.
was. And as I listened to it, I couldn't help but smile. But I saw some interaction on LinkedIn with somebody else that had listened to that. And they said they didn't totally feel that the song met exactly what their geniuses were. But
Mm.
when they could listen to it on the side of their team, and think through that on their team with the interaction, that's where I thought it really meant. Like I listened to my
Yeah,
wife's
right.
on that side. I thought, man, this is so spot on. And she listened to it and she's like, yeah, that's how people should think, right?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah, yeah.
that's how she is, just heard her tenacity and
Mhm.
quickly
Yeah, and
processed
that's
that
like
I could
Radiant
do.
Fire or something
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
right?
And
That's the
so
one that's like, "Don't burn the world down."
right.
Like, if you listen to it, it's like, yeah, like, "Don't light the pyre."
Yeah.
Keep saying like, okay.
And but it was so spot on, and it
Right.
was enlightening for her to hear because it also brought in because you brought in so many different. Again, AI is amazing. You brought in so many tools, the craves and crushes, the things that we have as facilitators. You brought those tools and it made it into a song, which is a lot easier. We hand out old school. We meet in person. We hand out these packets to people and expect for them to read them. But instead of reading and taking 20 minutes, a 3-minute song's created and brings all those things together. And it even has a warning because each one of those on like page 7 of our facilitator guide for those debriefs
Right.
gives you what yours is in a paragraph, but also one thing to be careful of. Mine is seeing something in somebody that's actually not there, which I've gotten to that. I push somebody on and on. And it's like, yeah, you know what? I was wrong. you, you don't have this in you. I thought you did, but you don't. It's okay. Let's pivot, figure something else out. Um, but that was in the song. And
Yeah.
in my wife's song, it talked about, remember that your discernment's not just a means to an end. and that is something she runs into. It's just constant completion. She
Yeah.
prompted and needs to complete it now. And it's like, no, you don't. That's not what your gift is used for. You don't have to just do it to complete stuff all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Mine's Wonder Weaver. So I could play it. But exactly that. Like it's, it's cheap, it's chintzy. Like it's not like the, like you said, it's not gonna go platinum, right? This isn't gonna
Yeah.
be like an album that you're gonna put on a repeat. Um, but yeah, I mean, you might learn a little bit about yourself. You might learn a little bit about your coworkers or a spouse or somebody you love and care about. One of the things that's nice too is like, and depending on how, if people want, is doing kind of one of the original ideas too. Ended up being a lot more pop, and some of it's a bit folky, which I really like a lot of the folk music. But kind of what I was thinking originally was almost like a workout tape.
Yeah.
Whereas like every song is like that's your anthem.
Yeah.
So like it's like an anthem album instead of this. And so it ended up being a bit more like soulful and different styles and different things going on. So there's a lot of anthem type stuff, but then like for mine, for instance, like Wonder Weaver, I'm ideation. I'm very in my head. So it makes sense that it's a slower, it's more of an ideation song. It's not high impact driven, right? Where like your wife's with DT, that is a high impact song.
Yeah.
The other song, probably my favorite on the album, is the IT one, this Clockwork Innovator, which I don't know if you can hear if the audio comes through on the stream either. But if you can hear this, you can tell like it's pretty rocking.
No audio coming through.
Yeah. Yeah, but you can go there and listen to it. And it's, it's good. But that's part of our discussion, right? Because like, segueing this into kind of our greater theme of what we're talking about here is that okay? Is it okay ethically even that I can go on, somebody who appreciates music but doesn't know music, I can go on and make an album in a day and release it? Where is that coming from? Right? Like who owns what? Where are they trained on?
Yeah.
Am I potentially taking away possibly, some creative possibility for somebody who has spent their life working on their art and music? Am I cheapening them in that sense? Is it okay? Is it okay for me to do that?
Yeah. It's a really hard line. I still come back to AI is just elevating everybody up. It's going to, maybe some people that got through, if they worked really hard in it and figured it out, maybe some of those jobs will be lost. Maybe there is some infringement on that. But there's
certainly going to be displacement, like we said.
But the great songwriters are still going to be great. And if anything, it's going to help them to pump out music more quickly. Because that one thing that they're maybe missing, that they're getting hung up on, you might be able to generate an idea enough for them to keep it going, to stop the writer's block for those great individuals. Because I had somebody send me a funny text and AI created a different song, and it was kind of like more like poetry. And at the conclusion after it was, well, this is gonna end a lot of jobs, and it might displace some jobs, as you said. But I really, at the end of the day, it wasn't anything that's gonna win awards. Yeah. Right. And that's not, somebody's not just out there doing average songs or just songs from beginning to end to complete it. They're trying to make money, and those people are still going to they're going to still be great at what they do. It just might look better. And I think music has kind of hit a standstill in some ways. I think that this is going to be a tool that's going to elevate it. Yeah. A lot of things are starting to sound the same, and maybe I'm just becoming that grumpy old man where everything's turned into pop and that I don't care. And I actually listen to lyrics now, to where I didn't realize I actually knew so many cuss words as a kid, because I listened to all those songs and didn't know I was even cussing really in them, because it was just all about the beat and the rhythm of it. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is, but I feel like it's due for some unique and next level lyrics. Change music somehow. Maybe the starting point. Maybe your album's the starting point, Jay.
Right.
Maybe it'll change everything.
Yeah, that's all it took.
One day.
Right.
One day with all these.
Yeah, so I'm there's a lot of 80/20 rules for a lot of different industries and a lot of different meanings with that. Um, and I think it's the same for this. And so, what I would call the 80/20 rule for creative AI is, and by creative AI, I mean, so even ChatGPT is creative AI. It's what people in kind of in the non-tech industry have coined as generative AI. And so that it generates, it creates, right? It had from nothing, it then generates, and that's so it's generative AI. Um, so all of these chatbots and all these different things fall into that category. And so for the creative stuff, writing, music, photography, graphic design, artwork, all these different creative elements. Um, I think that there's a lot of people who are very threatened by AI with that. And so the 80/20 rule is a way of communicating what I think is the reality of the situation when it comes to creative endeavors and AI and how that works. So coding is another one. Coding is, I think, is kind of falls in the same thing. So it's not even necessarily creative, although I think you do have to be creative to code. Um, Now with the power of AI, anybody can go from 0 to 80. I sent Kyle. I took a little video on my phone earlier this week where I was messing with the new Claude, and I was having it build a video game that is a training module for six working geniuses. Um, and within like one or two prompts, I sent him a video of it coding pages and pages and pages of code building this game. Right? I don't know anything about coding. I am not a developer. I am very far from it. I want to learn, and I want to get there to do a lot of the things am wanting to attempt. But it got me 80% of the way there. And so what happens if you're a coder? Then you're probably threatened by that. You're probably feeling like, okay, now this thing is going to compete with me. Where the reality is, it's not, right. If you do not use the technology, then yes, it will. Then everybody who has access to it all of a sudden is going to compete with you. But nobody without your expertise is going to compete with you if you are also using the tools. And so the idea is that it will get everybody to 80%.
Yeah.
If you want to write a book, you can have an 80% of a good book. You'll have 100% of a book done, but it'll be 80% good.
Yeah.
You can if you want to make an album, the album is probably 80% of an album, right? Where if you're talking about the 1,000 best albums in the world, all of them are probably in the top 0.01%, right? And I made something that got 80% of the way there, which is pretty crappy, but pretty awesome too. So if you're into graphic design, you know, use the tool to automate and differentiate, and you will achieve the extra 20%, which in reality is 100%. Because right now, so we're in still a bit of the early phase, and it's a little bit different because AI is breaking all the rules. But there's this thing called the diffusion of innovation. We talked about start with why. You have it behind you. I still have it right here for me. We've talked about a lot with our why. Well, one of the things he talks about he talks about the idea of the diffusion of innovation, which came out a long time ago. I forget the guy who wrote the official book on it. And then early 2000s, late 90s, I think the tipping point came out, which really kind of showed people how to use the idea of that. But basically what it says is that every idea, every new product, as it infiltrates, maybe it's not the best word, but as it starts working its way into the market or its way into the population, it starts with the early adopters, right? So really about like 13% of the people who are going to, so if 100% of the population, about 13% are early adopters, and they're innovators. They're looking for things to try, right? And then you have the early adopters, which is like the next 34%. And those are the people who aren't necessarily the innovators. They're not necessarily the people who stood in line for a week to get the first iPhone, but they're probably the people who got it within the first 6 months.
Yeah.
And then you have the I forget the backside of it, but then it starts to like get, really get through the rest of the population. But once it hits that top of the bell curve, now it's reached the tipping point, and it's going to forcibly get to everybody. And the iPhone is a great example of that. So even if you were a holdout for the iPhone, eventually you had to get a smartphone. Right. So examples of that. And AI is very similar. So we're still kind of in the early phases of it,
Yeah.
except for the fact that one of the things that happened with AI was, okay, you sit down with it and you have no idea what it can do. You hear about it, you have no idea what it can do, and you get it to accomplish a task, like writing an email. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
The world is different now. It's
Yeah.
changed. This is so powerful. Oh my gosh. It's like everything's, and then what happens is you start to use it a little bit, and it's like, yeah, no, it's actually still kind of crappy. So all of a sudden it's like the whole world goes to it, and then everybody gets disillusioned by it immediately because it's not as strong as we thought it was. Right. And so it's like, boom, now we're up here, but now we're like down here on it. Within like a year, this happened. This was 2023. And, this is like about within the last year. So from like March 2023 to about March of April, this whole like, oh my gosh, this is everything's changing. Now people are like, oh, this is barely even works. Right. And so what's going to happen, what I'm telling you this, so if you're listening, this is for you, because people are disillusioned with AI right now. And so they're going to not use it as much. They're going to not pay attention. They're going to start lose interest. They're going to fall behind. But the technology is exponentially getting better. And so in a very deceptive way, in the next 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden it's going to be able to perform like you thought it did. And if you stay up with it and you're using it, you're implementing it, you're doing it ethically, you're using it to benefit yourself, your family, the people you work with, the people who work for you, everybody around you, you start using it to create a better human situation for everybody around you and to superpower results, productivity, creativity. Now, all of a sudden, as it starts to get to the point where people thought it is, now you're way ahead of the curve.
Yep.
Now you're in pace, you're in step with everything. So as it gets to that point, now you're even more able to utilize its superpowers than if you didn't. So it's this interesting place. And I kind of rambled a lot about there. So to kind of like summarize it, the tipping point, we are early on in the adoption of AI. And so there's a lot that we are still learning and still having to do. So we're still in the early phases of that, except for the fact that it didn't reach the tipping point. It fell off really quick because there was a lot of disillusionment around it. And so it's still growing on the curve, but as far as the diffusion of that through the population, they kind of dropped off artificially. It appears to have dropped off artificially quicker than it is. And so the point is, stay up with it, because it is growing exponentially. And so it's like what's another way to show it? We thought it was here, and it turns out it was here, right? So now we've lowered our expectations to here, and it's still here, but it's going to get here soon. So yeah, fill that gap, if that's clear.
It is clear, and I'm excited about that. I just think of other situations. The only way you used to be able to build a house was if you had several guys with shovels, right? And then things changed. That baseline changed. We now have excavators that are going in there. And yet today, what was the biggest thing that we had a shortage of through COVID and still have a shortage of? It's contractors. We have all these robots, AKA machines now, that are doing the jobs for us. And yet we still have not enough people out building homes, which is part of the inflation problems that we have, right? And so as we look at AI with things that are being adopted and changed, I think that that's just some of the few ways in which we can look at it, to where it's not a matter of it's displacing jobs, but there's going to be a lot of jobs that are had. And we've moved to this anyway. So many people don't want to labor as our parents did at one time. One of the big reasons a huge issue within society right now is that those generational businesses are not being handed down to the next kid, because they saw dad ruin his knees and his back trying to be the concrete layer. They watch those in the insurance industry working nights and weekends, taking calls, filing those claims. AI is going to come into where I think we're going to see some automations come into where, like, yeah, I want to be a business owner again because I can still have work life balance and I can do the parts of dad's job that I enjoyed without having to go and be dad or be mom and work nights and weekends and do everything to make sure that this business absolutely thrived. And so I think we're going to see a big change in small business industry with this tool overall. It's not going to compete with the big boys, but it's going to allow you to go out and not have to go through the schooling of the corporate standards and learn from them and then go and take and create a business out of that. We now have the person that we can bounce off years of experience that pulls from these LML
LLM.
LMLs and being able
Large language model, LLM. Yeah.
LLMs and being able to pull in all that information and experience into one place to where I don't have to go through all that experience. So I'm excited about where the industry is going to go. I think we have a huge opportunity here. And yes, our thoughts, because movies have built it up for so long that it was going to be pretty and perfect from the beginning. Nothing ever is for the first iteration of it. I think of the bag phones where you had to put the antenna on top of the car and everybody's like, this is going to be awesome. I remember dad with the cord driving and being in the right spot, having the stop. And, that was the first reception and looked like it was going to be awesome. And they really weren't. And then we got to wireless, and then we are to where we are today. To do people even call each other anymore? It's just text now. Right. So it's cool. There's so many examples of where we are, where we were to where we are now, and there's more people than ever. So I think we figured out a way to keep jobs. They just keep evolving and changing, hopefully for the better.
Yeah, and before you close it out, I'm going to sign off on this because I think you touched on something very important. Small businesses are not keeping up with large businesses in terms of the value they add, right? So, and that just to say, 58% of people employed in the United States are employed for a small business. Which is great. So you think 58%, right? That's kind of it's a large majority. 39% of value added to the economy comes from small business. So there's a gap there, right? And this is the thing. This is 10X's mission, just to democratize business excellence. We are at this pivotal point in history where either we are going to be swallowed up by the big boys, or we collectively work together to do the best that we can as the little guys and be a superpower that way. And to me, it becomes a moral imperative. But it becomes about this: how do we utilize the democratization of information, which is exactly what you were talking about. We all have the information now. How do we capitalize that on that? How do we utilize that? And how do we do that for small businesses? That's 10X.
Yeah. Take over mom and dad's job and their business, adopt it, and be able to use this tool, right? And revamp it and clean it up. So, hey, this has been another awesome episode. Happy 4th of July to everybody. Those working tomorrow, thank you for working. We really appreciate it. I'm going to sign off with this. I heard this recently. People don't care to know what I know until they know that I care, right? And that's what Jay and I are here. We sincerely care. We both have, enablements third on the scale for Jay, but man, the way he talks, I would argue that maybe it's second for him. We both want to be able to help everybody succeed. We really love community. We really love the people out there, and we feel like the world is a big place that we can get lost in right now. But it's a smaller place together when we can work together and utilize resources around us. So please know that we're here to help.
Huge thank you to everybody here.
Yeah,
I don't know if there were any chats and any other things. I don't think any came through from here, but I did see that there's at least one person that's been watching, and I know that there's other people watching on LinkedIn and whatnot. So your just being here is one of the best ways you could support us for this. So thank you.
It is. We love it. It keeps us going, and we appreciate everybody. So thanks again. Signing off on 10X Live. We'll be back and great again next Wednesday. Looking
Yeah, and
forward
next
to
Wednesday
it.
you'll have a guest co-host, so that'll be
Woo-hoo.
fun. I will be on vacation, so I will not be here. So less AI, more six working geniuses.
It'll be fun. Look
Awesome,
forward to it. So
indeed. All right,
have a
we're
great
out.
weekend.
We're out of here.
Imagination's canvas, colors yet unseen. You paint with thoughts so vivid.